The penthouse apartment was silent except for the hum of expensive appliances. Michael Ashford stood by the window of his kitchen, watching the city lights flicker in the darkness below. At 42, he'd built an empire from nothing. Ashford Ventures had made him one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. He had everything success was supposed to bring, and he'd never felt more alone. Tomorrow was his birthday. 43 years old, and there would be no celebration. No friends dropping by, no family gathering. His parents had passed years ago. His marriage had ended in a bitter divorce that left him wealthy but empty. His days were filled with meetings and mergers. His nights with silence. He'd hired a nanny 6 months ago to help with his 8-year-old son, Tyler, who split time between Michael's place and his ex-wife's home. The arrangement felt cold and transactional, but it was necessary. Michael's schedule didn't allow for school pickups and homework supervision. The nanny's name was Claire Bennett. She was 28, hardworking, and kept mostly to herself. She wore simple clothes that had been mended carefully, arrived on the bus despite the long commute, and brought her lunch in reused containers. Michael paid her well, but he knew she was saving every penny for something important. She'd left for the evening an hour ago, after making sure Tyler finished his dinner and homework. The boy was staying at his mother's this week, so the apartment felt even emptier than usual. Michael walked to the kitchen island, intending to pour himself another glass of whiskey. That's when he saw it. A simple card sat on the marble countertop, his name written on the envelope in careful handwriting. The envelope was made from recycled paper, slightly rough to the touch. He opened it slowly. Inside was a handmade birthday card. The front showed a watercolor painting of a sunrise, delicate and surprisingly skilled. Inside, in that same careful script, Claire had written, "Dear Mr. Ashford, I hope you don't mind that I'm writing this. Tyler mentioned tomorrow is your birthday, and he seemed sad that you'd be spending it alone. I know I'm just your employee, and this might be overstepping, but I wanted you to know that you're appreciated. The way you've built your company while trying to be present for your son shows real character. I see how hard you try, even when you're exhausted. I see the books you leave on Tyler's nightstand, the way you call during your lunch breaks just to hear about his day. You're a good father and a decent man, and those things matter more than any business success. I hope your birthday brings you some peace and reminds you that your life has touched others in meaningful ways. You deserve happiness, Mr. Ashford. I hope you find it." With sincere respect, Claire Michael read the card 3 times, his hands shaking slightly. No one had acknowledged his birthday in years. His ex-wife certainly wouldn't. His business associates didn't know or care about personal milestones. Even Tyler, caught between 2 households, had forgotten. But this woman, this nanny he barely spoke to beyond logistics and schedules, had seen him. Had noticed not just his presence but his efforts. Had taken time to create something beautiful and personal with hands that probably couldn't afford store-bought cards. Michael sat down at the island, the card still in his hands, and did something he hadn't done in 5 years. He cried. Not the quiet, controlled tears of grief, but deep, shaking sobs of someone who'd been holding everything in for too long. The loneliness, the exhaustion, the feeling that his life had become nothing but transactions and obligations. Claire's words had cracked something open inside him. When the tears finally stopped, Michael sat in the quiet kitchen and made a decision. He couldn't keep living like this. Success without connection was just expensive loneliness. And if a nanny working 2 jobs could take time to see him as a person, he owed it to himself and his son to do better. The next morning, Michael called his assistant with unusual instructions. "Cancel my meetings today, all of them. Sir, you have the board presentation? Reschedule it." Something more important came up. He spent his birthday doing things he hadn't done in years. He cooked breakfast, messy and imperfect. He went for a walk in the park without his phone. He sat in a bookstore and read for pleasure instead of business journals. And that evening, when Claire arrived for her shift, he was waiting. She stopped in the doorway, surprise crossing her face. "Mr. Ashford, I didn't expect you to be home. Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine." "Actually, better than fine." He gestured to the kitchen table where he'd set out dinner. "I was hoping you'd join me for a meal, if that's not inappropriate." Claire's eyes widened. Sir, I don't think I read your card, Michael said quietly. It meant more to me than you could possibly know. And I realized I don't actually know anything about you beyond the fact that you're excellent with my son. I'd like to change that, if you're comfortable with it. She hesitated, then slowly set down her bag. Okay. They sat across from each other, and for the first time, Michael actually looked at Claire. Really looked. She had kind eyes that held both warmth and weariness. Blonde hair pulled back simply. A face that might have been carefree before life had added complications. Tell me about yourself, he said. The real you, not the professional nanny version. Claire seemed uncertain how to begin. I'm not sure there's much to tell. I work 2 jobs, take online classes when I can, and send money home to help my younger siblings. What are you studying? Elementary education. I want to be a teacher. She smiled slightly. Working with Tyler has reminded me why I love helping children learn. What made you take up watercolor painting? She blinked, surprised. How did you know? The card. That sunrise was too skilled to be casual. A faint blush colored her cheeks. My mother taught me when I was young. I can't afford supplies often, but sometimes I treat myself to a small set. It helps me relax. Over dinner, they talked. Claire told him about growing up in a small town, about her father leaving when she was 12, about becoming the surrogate parent to her 3 younger siblings when her mother got sick, about sacrificing college to work, then slowly clawing her way back toward her dreams. Michael shared things he hadn't told anyone in years. About building his company from nothing, about the marriage that crumbled under the weight of ambition, about the guilt of being an absent father even while living in the same city as his son. Tyler adores you, Claire said gently. He talks about you constantly, about the things you promised to do together when work slows down. When work slows down, Michael repeated bitterly. That's always the excuse. Work never slows down. I keep thinking I'll make time once this deal closes or that project finishes, but there's always another deal, another project. So what if you just made time anyway? Claire suggested. Not after something finishes, but now. What if you decided that Tyler matters more than the next merger? Michael met her eyes. You make it sound simple, because it is simple. Not easy, but simple. You're the CEO. You control your schedule more than most people ever could. You choose what you prioritize. Her words hit him with the force of truth. Over the next few weeks, Michael made changes. He adjusted his schedule to have dinner with Tyler 3 nights a week. He delegated more to his capable team. He started leaving the office at reasonable hours, and he kept talking to Claire. What started as employer-employee conversations became genuine friendship. She challenged him in ways no one else dared, never intimidated by his wealth or status. He discovered she was funny, insightful, and possessed a wisdom that had nothing to do with formal education. Why do you work so hard? He asked her one evening after Tyler had gone to bed. 2 jobs, school, supporting your family. When do you live for yourself? Claire smiled sadly. I'll live for myself once they're taken care of. My siblings need to finish school. My mother needs medical care. My needs can wait. That's not living, Claire. That's just surviving. Maybe. But some of us don't get the luxury of choosing. Her words haunted Michael. Here was someone with every reason to be bitter, working herself to exhaustion, and yet she'd taken time to make him a birthday card. To see his humanity when he'd forgotten he had any. 3 months after the card, Michael called Claire into his study. I have a proposal, he said. And before you refuse, please hear me out. She sat cautiously. I'm listening. I want to fund your education. Full tuition, books, living expenses while you complete your degree. And I want to hire you not as a nanny, but as an educational consultant for a new foundation I'm starting. One that provides resources and mentorship for children from struggling families. Claire's eyes widened. Mr. Ashford, I can't accept you can and you will. Not as charity, but as an investment. I've spent my whole career investing in businesses. It's time I invested in people who actually make a difference. He leaned forward. You showed me that success without purpose is just accumulation. You made me see my own son again. You reminded me what matters. Let me do this. Tears rolled down Claire's cheeks. Why? Because you left a card on a table. Because you saw someone invisible and made them feel human. Because the world needs more teachers like you'll be. Michael's voice softened. And because somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as my employee and started seeing you as the person who saved my life. Claire wiped her eyes. I didn't save your life. You did. I was drowning in success and loneliness. Your kindness threw me a lifeline. 6 months later, Claire enrolled full-time in her education program, funded by the Ashford Foundation. She continued working with Tyler, but now as a family friend rather than hired help. She and Michael grew closer, their friendship deepening into something neither had expected but both cherished. Tyler noticed the change in his father. You're happier now, Dad. I am, Michael agreed. Want to know why? Because of Claire? Partly. But mostly because I remembered what matters, and Claire helped me see it. 2 years after the birthday card, Michael proposed to Claire in the same kitchen where she'd left it. The card itself, now framed, hung on the wall as a reminder. You wrote that I deserved happiness, he said, kneeling with a ring. You were right. And I found it with you. Marry me. Let me spend the rest of my life showing you the same kindness you showed me. Claire said yes, through happy tears. At their wedding, Michael gave a toast about a simple card that changed everything. Sometimes the smallest gestures have the greatest impact. Claire taught me that success means nothing if you have no one to share it with. That wealth is useless if it doesn't serve others. That being seen as a human being is the greatest gift anyone can give. He looked at his new wife, radiant and beloved. Thank you for seeing me when I'd forgotten how to see myself. Thank you for reminding me that life is about connection, not accumulation. Thank you for being brave enough to leave that card on the table. Claire squeezed his hand. Thank you for reading it. And for hearing what I was really saying, because sometimes all it takes is one person brave enough to acknowledge another's humanity, one gesture of kindness offered without expectation, one card left on a table by someone who saw loneliness and responded with compassion, and sometimes that one small act changes everything. If this story warmed your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of unexpected connections and transformative kindness. Comment below about a time when a small gesture had a big impact on your life. Every act of compassion matters more than we know.